Thanks, salty old man. I appreciate that. Turning the microphone on helps. Let's start that thing all over again. I just talked for a minute by myself. Yeah. Can't hear. No audio. I got it. Thank you. This is what happens when we start up at 11 o'clock and I'm not fully prepared. Sorry about that. Let me rewind. I was saying good morning. I was saying good morning to everybody. I was saying, hey, we had some people trickling in. I was making fun of Podija and Stoner probably not being up yet because he always says wake and bake bitches from Garden City, Colorado, but it's only like 9:30 out there and I haven't seen them yet, so probably not here yet, but it looks like we got a good crowd trickling in now. And now that you can actually hear me, we're in business. What's going on, guys? So we got Ken. I said hi to Ken. Ken was the first one to say hi this morning. So Ken, you didn't hear me, but I was saying hi to you, buddy. Salty Old Man's here. Lone Wolf's here. Andrew Jennison. Aloysius. Could be Travis. Yeah, Travis is getting ready to roll a big joint. That's what I left out before the show started. Had I done that, I would have remembered to turn on the microphone. Trey says, man, you had me thinking it was my computer browser again. Cursing out my laptop. At least, I hope you didn't smash anything, buddy. If you smashed it, well, send the bill to Stochastic. Black Main's here. What's going on, Black Main? Good to see everybody. So what I was saying while I was muted there, anybody got anything good going on for Labor Day today? I'm just kind of hanging out. Shocker of all shockers, by the way, PSE&G actually showed up yesterday. I couldn't freaking believe it. Middle of the afternoon, Sunday of Labor Day weekend. The guy walked in. Who'd you piss off to have to work on Sunday of Labor Day weekend? He's, oh, you don't even want to know. But took about 5 minutes, swapped out the gas meter, came in, made sure that the thing was on. It was like changing 3 connections. I felt bad for the guy. 8Game Santa's doing the same thing with my damn phone while driving. God. You get somebody in an accident because I didn't remember to turn on my stupid microphone. I thought it was me, my computer, my AirPods. Who knew? Guys, always, first assumption should be Terry's a dumbass and he didn't set this up right. That should always give it 2-3 minutes before you start messing with your devices, changing settings, smashing things. Always assume dumbass first. Drive on with it. Can't believe they showed up on a Sunday, and Sunday of Labor Day weekend at that. I mean, I didn't know they worked on any Sunday. Outside of like emergency crews, like if the house blew up or something, maybe they'd send somebody out. But yeah, to do service calls on Sunday of Labor Day weekend blew my mind. Trey's grilling today. Sounds pretty good. What do you got, Trey? You got standard burgers and dogs? Are you doing anything like crazy? You do like smoker, like briskets kind of stuff, or straight up just burgers and dogs? I'm a burgers and dogs kind of a guy. I enjoy myself a good smoker cooked meal, and a couple of my buddies have them, but that's beyond me. Or not beyond me, but I've never tried. Let's put it that way. Could be Travis as a union man. I got no respect for people working on Labor Day Sunday. Seriously, I have to think they've got a union, right? PSE&G workers, they would have to, right? Electricians or something like that. I'm very, very surprised. And the guy was telling me when I was talking to him, he was saying like, it used to be just on-call stuff. They used to not schedule service calls, but now they started over the last few years. And I also felt bad because the purpose of installing the new meter was entirely so that they could read it automatically. So I imagine that's just clipping jobs, left, right, and center. The meter that was up there had been installed in 1994. So they got a good run out of it, I guess. I'm curious to see whether that was like leaking and this is going to tighten up my electricity, my gas bill, my electricity bill, or whether it was going the other way. Old broken meter was undercharging me. Trey's making steak, burgers, dogs, nothing crazy. That sounds pretty good to me though, bud. That's exactly the kind of grilling I like to do. I need propane in my grill. I do have a grill out back, but I need propane. It's been most of the summer without it. Didn't use the grill too much this summer, unfortunately. Grew up though. Dad grills, just still to this day, Dad grills 12 months a year. He'll be out there in February, and there will be 2.5 feet of snow on the deck, and there will just be a little path to the grill, and then it makes a left turn, and it goes down the steps so that they can take the dog out. But he's out there 12 months a year grilling. Lone Wolf, that's why I own a business. No Sundays for me. Hey, technically this is a business, I guess, and I own it, and here I am working on, Labor Day Monday, but I was doing it on Sunday, too. But yeah, it is nice, Lone Wolf, being able to set the schedule, to decide how things are going to go. That's I don't necessarily want to go back to ever working for somebody. So I hear you on that. Mike Palm, what's up, Mike? Happy Labor Day. Happy Labor Day back to you, bud. Food is the best. Yeah, Trey, I'm with you on that. So we got an interesting one. Looks like we got 27 people hanging out. We can kind of get into things now. 2:10 start time on both sites. 7 games on both sites. Interesting pitching slate. It's got a pretty decent top end. Couple really good, interesting, usable starters. Couple good starters in difficult spots as you go down the board. And then we get into a couple clunkers, and there's a lot of offense shining through on the board. So it's kind of a cover a lot type of a slate, rather than there's not a lot of specific positions really popping out where you'd say, I want to put a huge portion of my shares on that because that's so definite. No Coors game, for example. So we got a lot of similar type of run totals on the board, several similar pitching projections to get into. Big Bino's here, says, yo, what's up, Big Bino? Mike Palm, hello, Terry, Joker, and Roto Scouts crew. What's going on, Mike? So let's fire this thing up, I guess. Jump into here. Start on the run board. I think that's kind of a good spot to start for this one. So a couple of fives. We got a 5.5, 5.6, 5 and 5.3. Let's call that one. Those 3 games. But unlike yesterday, today we've got a bunch of high 4s and a lot of same. Remember yesterday, I mean, granted, we had the 7 and change total that really skewed things, but we had a lot of lower totals over the weekend with only a few like premium looking spots, where today the high 4s compare fairly favorably to a lot of the 5s. There's a lot of interesting spots today. So I think it's a much more evenly distributed potential for run scoring. I think it's a couple spots lurking for power. We've got a Dr. Andrew and Mr. Heaney game on deck that's giving the Astros the top spot in the power index. We've got Boston drawing good power marks against Aaron Savali. We've got the Diamondbacks looking primed against Peter Lambert. So some interesting spots. And that's before we get to, low-end teams like Colorado is facing Merrill Kelly. That's a great spot for pitching. But a good spot for hitting that's not really coming through the model like crazy for some reason is Toronto against Oakland, going up against Ken Waldichuk. There's Jesse Schultens on the mound. There's TJ Antone, JP France. There's some targetable pitching on the mound, but the middle part of the board is made up by a lot of interesting pitchers. So that's what's feeding, some of these tightly packed spreads. If we go over to the pitching board, Berrios, Kelly, Justin Steele, all looking basically like the same guy at the top of the board in their dynamite matchups. Berrios against Oakland, Merrill Kelly against Colorado, and then Justin Steele going up against the San Francisco Giants that's been given a bunch of strikeouts to similar type pitchers. Cole Ragans, pitcher of the month in the AL, facing the White Sox. Should have a good shot to continue his run. Projects out pretty well. Bayo facing the Rays. Tough spot, but projects well. Brian Wu facing the Reds. Interesting spot. Ton of strikeouts for him. Projects pretty well. Logan Webb, good pitcher, bad spot. Aaron Savali, good pitcher, bad spot. Andrew Heaney, who knows? Could be good, could be bad. Could be very good, could be very bad. Don't love it going up against the Astros the way they pound lefties. JP France, Ken Waldichuk, this bottom end is pretty weak. So what we lack is a true go-to like $6,000 guy. I think you can go to Heaney in that spot at 7. You can certainly use Cole Ragans at 72 on DK. That's just, I don't know why that price hasn't gone up for him. He's been pitching well enough. Whether it's real, whether it's just on the surface, maybe remains to be seen to some degree. But 7,200 for a guy who's had that strong a string of starts in a row is very cheap. I think Bayo and Brian Wu are very playable on the DK board, but you don't really have the extreme discount guy. Waldichuk, Lambert, Schulten, it's pretty weak bottom end. So I think it's going to be an interesting one to go through. Get into some game-by-game stuff. Let's see if we got the Royals lineup in. Didn't get the Royals, but we got a few others, so let me grab those while I'm here. White Sox I already have. The Cubbies is in. Let's do these real quick. While I'm doing that, hit the like button. Hit the subscribe. As I was saying, probably while I was still muted. The site is rotoscouts. The Twitter handle is @rotoscouts. The Discord is free. It's also linked. I updated the link in the description, by the way, so that should work now. So if you're looking to get into the Discord, hit that. Twins are not on this slate, so I don't care about that lineup. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe so you know on these odd days when shows go live. We're also going to have some football shows coming up. I imagine starting tomorrow. Might do like a pre-record one and drop it tonight, and to talk about like overall theory. I'm not really sure still. Like I was saying also, I think while I was muted, no big plans for me for the day, because a lot of my day I think is going to go into finally figuring out where the football stuff is going to go, how it's going to look on the site, what the schedule is going to be, what the breakdown's going to be. Taking a bunch of notes and gotten a lot of ideas together for how I want to do it, and just got to make some decisions about how the content's going to look. Never did get around to recruiting any help, so that'll be fun. But just going to spend most of today trying to figure things out, get everything finally up and sorted, and lost track of what the point was there. Oh, so that's why you want to hit the subscribe, because those shows are going to be popping up a little bit over the next week, and you want to know when they start. Trey's starting his breakdown today too. Sounds good, buddy. Great Biancone says at least set up a tip jar or something. Starting to feel bad, dude. Don't feel bad. Feel bad if I was here begging for change and for donations and people weren't making them. If I'm here saying, hey, this is fun and I'm loving it and everything's free and so on and so forth, don't sweat it. Could be Travis says I'll intern for you if you want some free help. Free is always good. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't know what the form of a lot of things are taking. Still, even though the season starts basically this week, so I didn't really go nuts like reaching out to people. Like Gunn, I know I told Gunn that I was going to see about him and me partnering up officially. I just haven't gotten to that yet, just because I just bad with knowing how things are going to come together. But we'll work on all this stuff, and we'll definitely see see who can help out, see who knows good stuff. Yeah, look, I mean, a couple people in the chat saying they'll. Big Bino says I'll intern too, and I know my shit pretty good. Look, if you guys reach out to me in the Discord or whatever, DM me in there, and specific, especially if you want to do stuff where it's like I'm writing a little piece about my 5 favorite wide receivers for this week or stuff like that. I'd be into the idea of bringing in some thoughts from the outside, and then it'll be like this is the team thoughts, the rotoscouts team, and then this is like the site thoughts, and then no, I'm not sure how exactly it goes, but reach out, hit me up in the Discord. I'm always willing to talk about it, and I definitely, especially when basketball gets here, I'm definitely going to need extra hands on deck. There's just going to be too much going on, but we'll get into it. Throwbacks is here. Wake and bake. Good morning. What's up, buddy? Fanatics here. Terry hit 20K a couple times. He's not poor. Hey, sometimes it comes, sometimes it goes, buddy. But we had a very, very good year last year, obviously, and we've had a bunch of good seasons. So definitely a little bit of a bankroll built up, but I don't want to spend my entire bankroll supporting the website either. But it's not an expensive operation, so you guys don't really have to worry about it. Right now, the biggest expense is just my time, and that's easy to give. So let's talk Royals White Sox. Mamba's here. Morning, Mamba. What's going on, buddy? Somebody jumped into the chat a minute ago and said, Conscious is here. Conscious says, what's good, fellas? What's up, Conscious? Stephen Leibowitz says, good morning. We need to be done before 6 p.m. today. We might get there. Could be Travis. Cole Ragan's lock button over 115 lineups. Interesting approach. Ragan's lock. I know somebody jumped in and said Happy Cole Ragan's Day. That's what I was looking for as a tie-in across to this game. But yeah, Cole Ragan's 7,200. That's just way too cheap. As I was saying when we were looking at the full pitching board before, 9,000 on FanDuel, arguably still too cheap as well. Projects out pretty well. 66 innings over 7 starts at this point, a 3.27 ERA with a 3.42 xFIP. Those have normalized. Those are basically together. Still walks too many at 9.2, but a great 29.5% strikeout rate. Hasn't given up much in terms of power. Limiting barrels very effectively, limiting launch angle pretty effectively. Home runs only at 1.85% on 88.1 miles an hour of exit velo. And he's facing this White Sox lineup that is pretty low end. No Luis Robert, no Andrew Benintendi. So you got Tim Anderson, Zach Remillard, Eloy Jimenez, Andrew Vaughn, Yon Moncada. This is not a very threatening version of this White Sox lineup. Little bit of lefty pop in there for sure, or righty pop against the lefty in there for sure. Basically these two guys. Not a lot to really fear here. What's their numbers against the... since we got a little bit of time. Not crazy time. Don't let me get too carried away with stretching out and looking at stuff. But I think there's some time to go through some stuff with only 7 games on deck. That's also why I wanted to start at 11:30. I was toying with it. I was like, oh, I could hang out for an hour and start the show at noon and then get done by 1. And then I was like, in my the internal voice was like, no, dummy, you'll be done by like 1:45, and then you'll have 15 minutes to build your lineups. So we started a little early. We got some time is the point. The White Sox. Collectively, active roster. Sorry. Active roster for the White Sox, 93 WRC plus against lefties this year with a 23.9% strikeout rate and only a 138 ISO. And that includes Lou Bob's numbers. So obviously this comes way, way down without him in the lineup. So it's just a very, very good opportunity. I have to imagine that Raggins is going to be explosively popular at that price on the DraftKings slate. I think he's totally worth it. As far as the SP2 spot, he's probably going to be pretty popular on FanDuel too, if we're going by the board I just looked at. So Raggins going to be a really popular guy at 9,000 on FanDuel, with some options. Woo for 8,000. Probably a worse matchup given that the Reds are a little bit more talented than the White Sox. But there's more strikeouts available for Brian Woo in that spot. I'm not sure I'm convinced that Brian Woo is not as good or better than Cole Raggins on the right day. Justin Steele, any one of these 3 guys, I'm happy to pay a little bit more for on that FanDuel slate if it's going to get me away from a lot of ownership. On the DK slate, I think you can just embrace the ownership, just roll with it. Make your decision as far as, all right, the field is at X, I want to be at Y, whether Y is above, below, or right at the field, and just roster him accordingly because he is easily the best SP2 value. But you do have Brian Bayo for only 600 more. You do have Woo for only 800 more. So there are options. And then Heaney if you really want to roll the dice. So there are options around Raggins, but I think he's the clear-cut best option at that price on that DK slate. Jesse Schulten's on the other side, 15.9% strikeouts, 3.97 ERA, but a 5.07 xFIP. That's a pretty big differential and not the way you want it split. 3.39 on the home run rate, 7.1% barrels is fine, 36.4% hard hits is actually pretty good. 89.3 miles an hour of exit velo is a weird number to see with his limitations of these things. That's probably where the extra home runs came from, but just kind of a clunky righty. Not really appealing here. Kansas City can be inept, can be somewhat interesting for a little bit of power on the right day. They've got a couple of interesting lefties in MJ Melendez, less so Michael Massey, but he fits in at second base for a cheap price, and he's got a little bit of left-handed power. So I don't love throwing Jesse Schultens into this team. I don't think we need to. He doesn't project out at all well. 5,264, he is in that dart throw range for just, extreme value on the DK board as an SP2. But I don't know. His path to success is so thin that it probably just evens out any advantage you'd be gaining in by going to that in price. If we roll this 1,000 times, he's not your slate winning pitcher much more than a handful. So I don't think we're going to Schultens. I do think you can grab Royals on the other side of that equation, but I think they're going to get pretty popular. They're a reasonable value play. Points per dollar is not even that great in the way that we do it. So they're toward the bottom in terms of the projected points. They pop up to 8th in the home run model because there are a few pretty good home run marks. Oops, looking on the wrong side. There are a few pretty good home run marks on a not shallow day by any means for power, but out of 14 teams to have them landing 8th is putting them in play, and they're so cheap just man-for-man pricing, while they don't come out great with where they project necessarily with some of these guys down toward the bottom, just really dragging down that average projection, you do get a lot of points per dollar value on a guy like Sal Perez, on a guy like Bobby Witt, even at 58.42, he's just so highly projected that it comes through all right. MJ Melendez, not bad. Michael Garcia, not bad. So there's a few good guys to go to here. But if I'm getting all these guys like Bobby Witt, Sal Perez, the guys I want to go to from that team at heavy popularity, it's not that great. There are other low-end teams that I can go to. So I would have some Royals, but I think it's an undercut to where I saw the Fields ownership earlier. The priorities are definitely Bobby Witt, 28 home runs, 39 steals, a 115 WRC+. Plus. Only Bobby Witt and Nelson Velasquez, over 99 plate appearances, are above average for run creation in this lineup, though. That's how bad they've been. Average WRC plus in this projected lineup is 91, 9% worse than average. Not a lot of on-base skill. Only mid-range home runs. Good home run hitter, good home run hitter. Should be a good home run hitter. Got one yesterday. Number 13 on the board for MJ yesterday. So priorities would probably be Bobby Witt, Sal Perez, MJ Melendez, Michael Massey, just right through here. And then I would probably just bolt on Michael Garcia. You can just do a 1 through 5, just straight line stack. I know people don't love doing that just for whatever reason, but that's their clear-cut top 5 hitters. Drew Waters, Matt Beattie. Velasquez is interesting down here given all this premium contact he's been making. 99 plate appearances. He's got 9 home runs, a 348 ISO. He's got the positive WRC+. Plus. The interesting part to me is the barrel rate, 18.5% barrels, 44.6% hard hits within that. It's a very, very small sample. He also strikes out a ton. But I think hiding down here in the lineup, 3,000 on either site, he's at least somewhat interesting for his power potential. Oh, and now we've got this lineup. So Velasquez moves up to 6th. That helps him a little bit. Is going to be a theme through the entire show. They're going to drop these lineups right as or after we're talking about them. All right, so you still got that. Oh, no Bobby Witt. Whew. All right, take the Royals down. Quite a few pegs, I think. No Bobby Witt is probably going to reduce any popularity that was going to be drawn to Sal Perez, MJ Melendez, Edward Olivares now in the lineup, Michael Garcia. If you're doing it, you'll probably get these guys at a little bit lower ownership than they would have been with Witt in the lineup. They'll still be a little bit popular through the top end. Mike Massey dropping down to 7th. Yep, thanks, Mamba. I just caught that. Thanks, guys. Just noticing that everybody's putting in the chat there. Yeah, that makes it interesting. Trey, I'm not sure that leads to Schulten's. Don't really love that, given the very limited strikeout rate, limited in terms of the xFIP, pretty high whip. Let me see. I'll take a look. See if he's... I don't remember him getting it done at any point this year, but I might be wrong. Peaked at 6 strikeouts. Back-to-back 6 strikeout games against Texas and against Cleveland. Cleveland is an accomplishment at the beginning of August. Gave up runs in both of them. Gave up a homer in both of them. Last 4 games was 3 runs, 5 runs, 5 runs, 5 strikeouts, 2 strikeouts, 4 strikeouts. Last time out against Baltimore was 5 1/3. Only 1 run on 6 hits. Only struck out 1, though. I think you're pretty limited on a pretty user-friendly pitcher slate if you go to Schulten's. It does become more of a value dart for sure with no Bobby Witt in there. He's by far their best hitter. But I don't love it. I don't think we've got much of a strikeout ceiling to work with. He doesn't need a lot at that price. I will say that, Trey. But that's a little bit thin. Yeah, darts, like you're saying, Trey. I think that would be, and Shannon's saying it as well. Yeah, I think that would be fair. It probably puts him on the $5,200 value dartboard, if nothing else. You only need a couple of points, and you gotta drill the hitters that you buy with that price. But that does become more interesting. 64 on FanDuel. It's the right price, but I still don't know if I would touch it. It just works differently over there on FanDuel, and there are other similar, somewhat discounted hitters that can get you to good combinations. If it absolutely buys you something elite that no other pitcher on the board can get you, sure. But for me, that's a little bit dicey on the FanDuel slate. Stephen Leibowitz says on a 7-game slate, you can deal him in. Yeah, that's the other thing. 14 teams to work with, 14 pitchers, a couple other really low-end guys, and certainly one of the low-end guys in a much, much better matchup than some of the others. So, yeah, for those tokens, I guess he's a little bit on the board. Still dicey, though. If you're making the play, make it with eyes open toward what this pitcher is. Know that you're getting capped around 5 and change innings, around 5 and change strikeouts at most. Cue the 12 strikeout Jesse Schulten's best game of his career, which would be great. Shannon says Merrill Kelly gets the Rockies in the desert today. Yeah, I like that spot quite a bit. Top of the board. Definitely a very appealing spot there. So if you're going to take some White Sox, I do think it's a at least playably contrarian position given how highly owned Cole Ragans will be. It sucks that there's no Luis Rivera to do it with, but if you're going to that team, I would grab Eloy Jimenez, Andrew Moncada, or Andrew Vaughn. Andrew Moncada. Whew. Still not awake. Eloy Jimenez, Andrew Vaughn, probably Yohan Moncada out of the middle. And then maybe it's a 3-man. Just grab the middle 3. Maybe Trace Thompson from the bottom if you want a 4th and Tim Anderson off the top. So maybe you go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just take some power against the lefty. It's not great. It's just trying to attack what's probably going to be 25+% ownership on Ragans on FanDuel and 50% plus on DK. I would have to think at that price on a slate like this. Yeah, Shannon hit it on the head. Boy, this White Sox lineup is god-awful. That's the thing. When it's this bad a lineup, it's just difficult to justify even saying take it as a contrarian position. But I think on a slate where I was saying earlier, there's very few positions that you just, on quality, say, all right, I want to block that off and I want to make sure that I get to that. I think it is a slate where there's a couple positions like this where it's not quality necessarily, but it is at least targeting a broad swath of the field that's going to have Cole Ragans on the mound, and it gets you very different. But you're, again, doing it kind of like the Jesse Schulten's play. You're just doing it, you have to do it with eyes open to how bad these players have been. Anderson's been awful, 40% worse than average all year creating runs, 1 home run, 12 stolen bases that he's had for half the season. Zach Remillard for 27-23 at least fills 3 positions on the FanDuel slate. Only second base, but at least it's second base only. It would be way worse if he was a third baseman on the DK slate. At 2,700 top of the lineup, he's playable. 262, 313, 336. 22% worse than average creating runs at 134. But at least he hits ahead of Eloy Jimenez, Andrew Vaughn, Joe Moncada. So maybe you get a little out of Remillard. Vaughn's got 17 homers, a 169 ISO, exactly at the league average for run creation. Moncada, 17% worse than average, 5 home runs, 250, 295, 377. Below the Mendoza line for Landon Sosa. Oscar Colas does have projectable lefty power, but just 4 home runs in 245 plate appearances, a .088 ISO in a disappointing rookie year. He's been better in the outfield than he has at the plate. That's what's keeping him in the lineup. Shannon, this game total is 10. Or it was 10 anyway. Oh, how is this game total 9-5? I thought you said... I thought that question was, what is this game total? I had it at 10. It might have come down to 9-5. It was 10 when I put the sheet together earlier. I'll probably leave it at 10 when I run things. Big Bino says, my exotic home run pick of the day is Yainer Diaz. I like that. I think anybody from the Astros is in play for a homer against Heaney. So, Cole Ragans, but mind the popularity, obviously. He's going to have a bad one at some point. And some of the supporting numbers for Ragans, like the 9.2% walks, the 1.20 whip, still a little bit of concern there. But he's been so good at pitching his way out of any jams, and he's been limiting power so much. And, I don't think this is necessarily the team that's going to get him. But one of these days, with the weight of the world on him, Cole Ragans is going to go pop. It would be great if it was today, honestly. If you were under the field and Cole Ragans went bust today, that would be fantastic. And that might be the position I take up on him just because I like those 3 pitchers above him. And then I like the Brian Woos of the world. So as far as the Ragans play, I'll probably undercut. 9,000 on FanDuel, I think I can undercut. Have some, but undercut. If he's 25% at that price on FanDuel, I'm happy with 10-15. I don't really mind that. On the DK slate, like I said, I think you're just making the decision specific to where the field is because he's at such a good price. But if 50-60% of the field is on that play and you undercut that to even 30-40%, take some shares on the opposite side of it, and then spread out to other spots. If he goes bust, you gain a lot of ground really quickly. Stephen Leibowitz says the 9.5 runs on DK slightly juiced to the over. Okay. Mama says, if the ownership on Schulten stays the same, he will be my top SP2. Only way to get leverage unless Savali learns how to throw a fastball again. Yeah, Shannon, I think that Rangers-Astros game can go off as well. Clunky pitching on the... If you get either of those guys on the wrong day, the right day, however you want to put it, definitely going to be some offense there. So, since we've spent like a half hour on this game now, Cole Raggins. Move on. Cole Raggins, then the White Sox hedge position with the top of the White Sox lineup, maybe? Maybe some Royals. It's really difficult with this version of the Royals lineup and expecting some popularity there. Cole Raggins, take what you want with bats, take it, and then Jesse Schulten's on the bottom. How about that? I think the White Sox position is more interesting than the Royals just because of how it's going to be attacking the field. But the Royals are in a better spot than the White Sox. That's why I'm having a little difficulty there, especially because it's a bad version of the Royals lineup in a better spot than the White Sox. Call the bats a tie. Jesse Schulten's at the bottom, but I get it for the people who are saying they want to go to it. Second game. We've got lineups here. Cubbies is already in. Giants is here. Good pitching matchup here. Justin Steele, 10,000 on DK, 10.6 on FanDuel, one of the top projected pitchers on the day. 25.6% strikeout rate for this Giants lineup, the confirmed version. Plenty of strikeouts on the board for Justin Steele, who can go find him. 23.6% for the year. Not elite, but a good strikeout rate, especially when it goes with a 5.2% walk rate, 2.69 ERA, and a 3.55 xFIP. Only a 1.84% home run rate on 5.7% barrels, 35.9% hard hits, 87 miles an hour of exit velo. There's a lot of quality there for Justin Steele going up against the Giants team that has the reputation for hitting lefties well, but really there's some limitations to that this year. JD Davis hasn't been great. Wilmer's been good against both hands. He's got 20 home runs and only 375 plate appearances, 240 ISO. He's been easily their most dangerous power hitter this year, which is still a little bit weird. Wilmer's a proven guy, and he's proven himself mostly by hitting lefties very, very well throughout his career, and now he's just good against both hands. But it's kind of weird to have Wilmer Flores be the best power hitter on a team. Steele looks to be basically on form over the last handful, giving up some runs. Looks like 3 games in a row, going back to the beginning of August where he gave up 3. 2 games in a row where he gave up 2, and then had a 6-inning shutout with 8 strikeouts and a walk against Milwaukee the last time out. But working fairly deep into games in those games, 6, 5 1/3, 5, 6, 6, and then 6 in the most recent one. Handful of strikeouts, 6 strikeouts, a run of 7 strikeouts in 3 straight, 6 strikeouts, 8 strikeouts. So mostly on form, couple of runs scored against him, but I'm not going to sweat a few earned runs on a slate like this. I think we're fine with that, and I think he's got the upside to potentially limit this team to nada. Giants, 96 WRC plus this season against lefties, a 25.5% strikeout rate that is extremely targetable, and only a 148 ISO, which is kind of what I was getting at with the reputation for having power against lefties, but not really delivering on it as much this season. 25.5% strikeout rate against lefties is 3rd worst in baseball behind Colorado and Seattle, 2 teams that we aggressively attack with lefties. The ISO is 24th ranked in baseball, so 6 from the bottom. Giants pretty targetable here. So I really like the spot for Justin Steele. Gonna have my fair share. On the Giants side, I think you can go to a few Giants stacks just because it's a lot of both-sided situations across the board with a lot of somewhat similar run totals. 4.20, though, that is one of the lower ones. The 3.3 for the Rockies is by far the lowest on the board. But 4.2, 4.1s. So those are the spots to not necessarily avoid by any means, but those are the spots that are a little bit more dicey. Not that Red Sox one, by the way. That one's a good one. So if you go to the Giants, Austin Slater off the top, 263, 345, 401, 110 WRC plus. Basically specializes against lefties. They typically lead them off against a lefty. Good barrel rate, good hard hit rate. Not a ton of home run power. 5 home runs in 171. It's not bad. Certainly a productive enough guy, but strikes out 27.5% of the time. Walks 10.5, but against Steele and his ability to clip walks, that's maybe not going to shine through. I give Steele the advantage in that matchup. Titor Estrada, good player, not a great player. 10 home runs, 19 steals, a 105 WRC plus. Triple slash is down this year by comparison, over 429 plate appearances. Not a ton of pop in the bat. Can hit a home run on the right day, but not a lot of regularly premium contact. Wilmer, similar story, really. Not a ton of regularly premium contact. The barrel rate is obviously much better than Estrada. 20 home runs, though, 288, 352, 528, a 240 ISO, 139 WRC plus, and 375. He fills 3 positions on FanDuel for 3,000. Wilmer's a good buy in this lineup. Mitch Haniger is a good buy in this lineup. 3,800 on the DK slate, 2,600 hitting cleanup today. Making good contact in over 173 plate appearances. Only 4 home runs, 219, 272, 363. 26% worse than average creating runs, fairly high strikeout rate, fairly low walk rate, but does have tons and tons of power on the right day. 2 years ago when he was last fully healthy, he hit 39 home runs. That's a pretty good right-handed power bat. Diminished at this point, probably. A lot of absence, a lot of injuries throughout his career, but still, for those prices, I think you could take your shots. Not that Steele gives up a lot of homers. Patrick Bailey, mix and match catcher. J.D. Davis, mix and match multi-position eligible on DK at first and third. Only a third baseman now, but only 25 on FanDuel. 15 homers on the year, down to a 153 ISO, down to exactly league average for run creation after a much, much better first half. Casey Schmidt, mix and match guy, third base, shortstop, 3 positions on FanDuel for cheap, but not a lot of output. 54 WRC plus, over 257. Paul DeJong, definitely some veteran power, 14 home runs. I don't think he's washed at this point. I know he got himself traded to Toronto and then moved and waived out to San Francisco, but 14 home runs on the year is not nothing. He's still a somewhat capable veteran righty power hitter on the right day. He's only 30, I think, when we looked the other day. So I still think there's a little bit of gas in the tank for DeJong at the bottom of the lineup. Then Mike Yastrzemski, lefty. Very good contact profile for Yaz. 12 home runs in 301 plate appearances. What's his lefty? Yaz lefty this year has a 60 WRC plus with a 24.7% strikeout rate, 3 of his home runs, and a 162 ISO. Not great. So limiting option for Yaz at the bottom of the lineup. Logan Webb on the mound for the Giants. Interesting pitcher. Don't love the spot, but he projects out like Logan Webb would, in this spot. This is not a odd projection. I think it's correct. I think he's got ceiling beyond that on the right day. The Cubbies, good at limiting strikeouts, good at putting the ball in play, getting to first base, creating runs. They're a very good team. They're a stack that I want to get to today, even against Logan Webb's quality. Webb limits launch angle very effectively, 1.5 degrees, 2.66% home run rate, 45.4% hard hits, 91 miles an hour of exit velo. I don't care that much about these when it's on this kind of a launch angle. This is a little high for him. 1.4 last year, 1.5 the year before. But overall, perfectly fine. He's striking out a few more. He's walking only 3.8. So he's cut walks, boosted strikeouts, given up a couple more incidental home runs in his 28 starts, 180 in a third innings. He also pitches really deep into games. So I do like Logan Webb. On the right day, I do think there's upside for Logan Webb here. I didn't look what the weather at Wrigley looks like. I imagine it's a Wrigley day games are typically when we get those winds blowing out and so on type games. Let me see where we're looking at here. Yep. Winds blowing out to left. Same with KC. A lot of wind and hot and windy in both of those games. So that's potentially another reason in this one to maybe not super consider Jesse Schultens. Maybe be a little bit worried about Cole Ragans if there's that much wind blowing out on a hot day. Just adds fuel to the fire for undercutting Cole Ragans and being very cautious about Jesse Schultens. For Logan Webb, And actually for Justin Steele to some extent. I don't know how much the wind is going to be that big a factor. Guys who pretty effectively keep the ball down. Webb much, much more than Justin Steele. But out of a lot of pitchers in baseball that you could throw into this mix, these are two of the better guys, pitching-wise, to have in that situation. Hot day wind blowing out in Wrigley Field is never great for a pitcher. But both of these guys have enough talent, have enough acumen for limiting home runs, limiting launch angle, that I think they can get through it. If that keeps Justin Steele in particularly lightly owned, I will definitely take advantage of that spot and go to it. Whether or not he gives up power, I think it makes sense to go there. Logan Webb a little bit less so, just because I like the Cubbies lineup a lot more than I like the Giants lineup. But I think same thing applies to Logan Webb. If he's just flying under the radar and very low owned for these prices, I think there's a decent amount of upside there. Cubbies bats against Webb. You can see the impact he has on the home runs. There's no weather involved in this in the home run model, so take it for what it's worth with the wind consideration there. But Cody Bellinger normally up in the 8s against a bad pitcher, he'll crest up above the magic number. Dansby Swanson's hit 20-plus home runs for as long as I can remember. Seiya Suzuki, a little bit of power, 14 home runs. Heimer Candelario only at 2.84. He's got 21 home runs at 225 ISO on the season. So you see the limiting impact right there. So if these guys aren't going to elevate the ball, aren't going to be hitting, aren't hitting for home run trajectory anyway, having some wind at your back isn't going to change a ground ball into a fly ball. But I do like the Cubbies lineup. I do love how they get on base. They sequence very well. They create runs very well. Mike Tauchman in the leadoff spot, 361 on base, a 109 WRC plus. Little bit of pop, minor pop from the left side, 3,600, 2,900. Nico down to 5,400. We're getting corrected prices for Nico. 35 on FanDuel, still a little bit high. Second base only on DK, second and short on FanDuel makes up the gap. 36 stolen bases, only a 103 WRC plus, 280, 341, 393. Good, not great. Effective, not fantastic type player. I still think the prices are a little bit high, but at least it's not like 58 or whatever it was the other day. 35 on FanDuel, still a little aggressive. Ian Happ, I like a lot. 4,200, 3,100 in the outfield, 365 on base, 17 homers, 13 steals, 19% better than average creating runs. I didn't get a single one of those clicks right. Cody Bellinger, 63-39, fair. First base and outfield, fairly priced for the output. 23 homers, 19 steals, a 143 WRC plus, a fantastic triple slash. The home run output being at 23 on only 6.1% barrels, 30.4% hard hits. That kind of tells me, I think that means he's got a little bit room to grow and become even more of getting back to form, to the superstar caliber form that he was in the past several years ago when he won the MVP. This tells me there's more ceiling here. 15.8% strikeout rate is fantastic. That's down from 27.3% last year. At the beginning of the season, he was at like 22, and I was saying, man, if he can just maintain that, that would be a big boost to him. He's not only maintained that, he's blasted through that, and he's got it down to 15.8, which is the explanation for a lot of these numbers. But I think given where the contact is, I think there's upside beyond this for the future. Or he could go cratering back to the bad version of Cody Bellinger. Who knows? Dansby, 48-31, very good shortstop, 19 home runs, a 104 WRC plus in a down season for him, but still a power hitting shortstop, has value. Seiya Suzuki, only 34-28. His grading runs 11% better than average. He's got a 338 on base. He's got a 175 ISO. Not bad. Not stellar, but not bad. 9.5% barrels, 47% hard hits, 14 homers. Very effective hitter late in the lineup. Candelario, another very effective hitter with a little bit of power late in the lineup. 225 ISO, second on the team, 22% better than average for run creation, also second on the team. A lot of that came with Washington, but he's been very good since he got to the Cubbies. Jean Gomes, good mixing catcher, a little bit of power. 9 home runs in 341 plate appearances, 93 WRC plus. Not great, not overly reliable, but a little bit of pop on the right day. Nick Madrigal, mix and match kind of guy. Justin Steele, Logan Webb, Cubs bats, Giants bats in that order. Even with the wind blowing out, I prefer the pitchers. I do think you want to grab some bats on both sides, primarily the Cubs. But I like the pitching in this one, even with the wind. I think these guys can effectively cut through that wind fairly well. We've referred to this one a couple of times for potential offense. Doesn't look like we've got either lineup. Let me give it a little reload here. Nope. No lineups in yet. Stephen Leibowitz says no love for Waldichuk because he's Waldichuk. Yeah, I think that's correct, buddy. Jake, I love Merrill Kelly today, too. What's up, buddy? Happy Labor Day to you, too, bud. Glad you got here. Lone Wolf says, pointed out the hitting weather in Chicago. Check Discord. Yeah, thank you, by the way, buddy, for dropping that weather board into Discord. That's definitely helpful. I'm not sure where you sourced it from. Don't want to know. But I'm sure it's not something that somebody's doing for free, but I appreciate you dropping it in there. Definitely good info. And yeah, there is all that hitting weather, but as I said a couple times in that breakdown, I do like the profile of each of those pitchers potentially pitching through that weather. But that gives more justification also for going to some bats against guys like Logan Webb and Justin Steele. Jay's Coors hangover. Anyone interested in Mr. Waldichuk? So that's where the Waldichuk question was coming from. Pretty extreme gap between Coors and Oakland. Yeah, that is true, for sure. And the Jays haven't been great all season. Waldichuk's mostly not been great all season. He's got a couple bright spots, mostly in that bulk relief role. We'll get there. So I think we are looking for offense in this one. The Astros blasting through the top of the home run model with all those big marks against the Mr. Heaney version of Andrew Heaney. We got... Bear with me real quick. We talked about this the last time. We've talked about it basically every time that Andrew Heaney's been on the mound this year. If you get him on the right day when he's Dr. Andrew, you get a pretty good start. You get a pretty high ceiling. Last time out, we had Dr. Andrew on the mound. Faced the Mets 5 1/3, 7 strikeouts, 5 hits, no runs, 1 walk. Pretty good start. Start before that, it was definitely Mr. Heaney. 3 runs on 3 home runs, 7 hits, a walk, 5 strikeouts, 4 1/3 against Minnesota at Minnesota. Game before that, 3 2/3, only 3 strikeouts. No home runs allowed, but 3 runs on 7 hits. Game before that, an inning and a third. That must have been a rainout. Was that a rainout at San Francisco? Why did he come out after an inning and a third on August 12th? Well, whatever happened in that one. We won't count that one. 5 2/3, the one before that was okay, but only 4 strikeouts. And then back to the last Dr. Andrew game before the most recent one at the beginning of the month, 8-1, 11 strikeouts against the White Sox. 2-hitter over 6 innings. That's the kind of production you get from Andrew Heaney. He can be that good. He can be that bad. I think we get the bad version here just because of how good the Astros are at not striking out against lefties, at just absolutely pounding left-handed pitching. Houston, a 206 ISO against lefties, sits 5th overall in baseball. They have a 17.8% strikeout rate. That's second only to Washington at 17.4 in the split. They have a 132 WRC plus. That's second only to the Braves and the Padres for run creation against lefties this year. Padres 134 WRC plus against lefties. Now I have to look just out of morbid curiosity where they are against righties. 104. There's your problem, San Diego. So yeah, the Astros' quality against lefties, I think, is what shines through here. Plus, they've got all this power. They've got the 2 premium lefties in the lineup that lose nothing in same-handed matchups, lefty-lefty. Jordan Alvarez, Kyle Tucker are just as good against same-handed pitching as they are against righties. So we've got a couple of elite left-handed power bats here. My hope, as always, is that people don't realize that and say, like, oh, those guys are lefties. Let me go to more shares of Jose Abreu, Jainer Diaz, et cetera, et cetera. But I like those guys. Abreu, 6.67 in the home run model. He's up to 12 on the season, a 117 ISO, a 77 WRC plus. He's been lousy, but there's still a little bit of sneaky power there. 40.7% hard hits from the right side. I do think he's on the board, the lowest among the regulars in terms of the power rating today. Jeremy Pena slightly ahead of him at 6.68. Pena's got 10 homers, a 130 ISO, a 98 WRC plus. He's been kind of just a mix-in shortstop all season. Martin Maldonado down the bottom of the lineup, 2,400, 2,300, mix-in second catcher in that lineup. Greatly prefer Jainer Diaz, obviously, with the excellent triple slash, the 20 home runs and 332 plate appearances, the 249 ISO, and the 125 WRC plus mark. He's been spectacular. Only striking out 17.8% of the time, walking only 3% of the time, so everything's put in play. Very, very good contact profile. Jainer Diaz, catcher, you can play him at catcher. You can play him at first instead of Abreu on the DK slate if you're inclined to do that. A little bit more money to do that, but I think it's definitely on the board. He's a playable catcher on the FanDuel slate as well. Only 2,800 on FanDuel too. That's cheap for the. Just take everything off of it and just show me this line, this stat line over 332 plate appearances, and I would tell you that is a more than $2,800 player. Top of the lineup's really where you want to get invested, and then Chas McCormick. McCormick only 4,700 on the DK slate. That's a bargain against this pitcher. He's got an 11 plus in the home run model. 3,500 on FanDuel is more correct, but arguably could be a couple $100 more. He's been really good all season. 281, 363, 511 with a 141 WRC plus, 19 home runs, 14 stolen bases. Good matchup in the split. Against lefties this season, let's see. McCormick leads the Astros with a 196 WRC plus in 112 plate appearances against lefties. He's got 8 of his 19 home runs in only 112 plate appearances in the split. He strikes out 25% of the time, but he's got a 307 ISO against lefties this year. That's third best on the team. That's behind Kessinger and John Singleton, so he's the highest end regular on the team against lefties. Martin Maldonado, by the way, a 139 WRC plus in 84 plate appearances against lefties, also has a 307 ISO in the split. 6 of his home runs. That's 6 of his 11 home runs. So basically more than half of his home runs in only 84 plate appearances against lefties. So maybe it is the day to consider a little bit of Martin Maldonado down the bottom of the lineup. Tucker, 163 WRC plus against lefties. 11 of his home runs. Alvarez, 158 WRC plus. 6 of his home runs in only 134 plate appearances. Tucker has a 259 ISO as a lefty-lefty. Alvarez has a 241. I'm telling you, those guys don't lose anything lefty-lefty. Alex Bregman, power hitter at third base, 22 home runs on the season, a 179 ISO. The ISO is a little lower than you'd want, but the triple slash is effective enough. 365 on base is very, very good. Keeps him involved with correlated scoring. Only strikes out 12.9% and walks 12.5%. These and these are really problematic for Andrew Heaney. That's the trouble you're going to get into with Heaney here. 24.5% strikeouts is good, but not great. We do know that he can spike very good strikeout games, but this isn't the right team to do it against. And the 9.1% walks is problematic. All the premium contact, we know about that issue. But, in addition to the home run potential that he could run into, 4.01% home runs, 90.3 miles an hour of exit velo on the average, 10.7% barrels. With all those problems, in addition, we've got the walk issue against a team that's really good, at least at the top end, at drawing walks and not striking out. This is a problem matchup for Heaney. So I'm much, much more on the Astros side of things. 7,000, if you wanted to throw a couple darts at it, I don't think you're completely crazy, given that there is, even against this team, a good strikeout ceiling for the pitcher. His talent is strikeouts. With that in the mix, for 7,000, a couple of value darts is fine, but he doesn't project well. He doesn't look good. 83 on FanDuel. It's correctly priced, but it's dicey. I don't know how many times you want to do it on the FanDuel slate. Could he get there? Yes. It's possible that Andrew Heaney succeeds in this spot. It is unlikely, and it does not project like it. JP France on the other side, 17.6% strikeouts. More of a target here for Rangers bats, I think. 3.49 ERA, but a 4.52 xFIP. Putting too many guys on, not inducing enough swinging strikes, not throwing enough strikes overall. Little bit of power, not egregiously bad. 7.6% barrels, 38.1% hard hits, 3.07% home runs. Not terrible, but definitely gettable. And this Rangers team is one that can definitely get to a pitcher like this. So I like this lineup as well. It's more offensively geared on both sides for me. Semien and Seager off the top, couple of stars, 117 WRC plus and a whopping 178 WRC plus for Seager. 26 homers and only 425 plate appearances for Seager, 17.4% barrels, 55% hard hits. Semien does everything in a little bit lighter fashion, but he strikes out a little bit less, walks at a similar pace, has 20 home runs and 636 plate appearances, good on base percentage to correlate directly with these guys. Very good player at second base up top. You could argue that he's a little bit expensive at 6,000 on DK, but I think he's worth it, and I think that the discount on Nathaniel Lowe helps pay for it. 45-33 for Lowe. 15 homers, creating runs, 26% better than average. A big part of what they do in the heart of the lineup. Gets on at a 374 clip, so he's always involved with these guys behind him. And these guys behind him are Adolis Garcia, who's their best overall power hitter with 34 home runs at 252 ISO. Mitch Garver, who's right on his heels for power. Mitch is now tied with Jonah Heim at 15 home runs after his big day. What was that, yesterday, day before? Basically half the plate appearances, not half, but roughly half the plate appearances of Heim. Both power hitting catchers are involved, whichever one is in the lineup, or when both are in the lineup. They can both be in your lineups, or you can mix and match them. They're similarly priced. They do a lot of the same things at the plate. They both hit for decent average. Garver's getting on base at a 371 clip versus Heim's 324. They both create runs. Garver's creating more runs. He's hitting for more power overall. He's the better of the two players, but both are in play. Robbie Grossman, mix and match kind of an outfielder for 31.25 in a good lineup in a decent spot. Ezekiel Duran, Leody Taveras off the bottom. Both have been in decline over the past month or so. Taveras down at 94 WRC+, still good for counting stats. Decent average, not getting on base quite as much as he was. That's the problem. And then Ezekiel Duran still has all the quality. 14 homers, 8 steals, a 110 WRC+. Still has all these qualities. He's just diminished a little bit in his triple slash. The WRC+ has come down a bit, but still fills 3 positions on the FanDuel slate for only 2,700. Getting him for 3,800 as a third baseman only on DK, that kind of sucks. But 3 positions for that price on FanDuel has quite a bit of value. Helps pay for a lot of this stuff. Wraps around nicely to a lot of these guys. So it's bats on both sides. I got to give it to the Astros. Visiting team showing all that power. So Astros bats, Rangers bats, Heaney darts. No real love for JP France. Prices are not right. I'd rather pay $200 more for Heaney even against the Astros on FanDuel, and $1,400 more for JP France on DK is just a broken price. That doesn't make any sense to me. Let's move it along. Blue Jays, this was Shannon's potential hangover squad. I don't know. I'm not a big believer in the hangover thing, and I know that it's just kind of a way to, put the a term on just the fact that they're not in Coors anymore. It's not necessarily actually like, oh, they are spent from their efforts at Coors Field or anything like that. Big Bino says, he's my home run guy. That's my other one. Let me I think Semien is overpriced for what he's been doing lately. Yeah, again, I think that is a fair argument, especially on DK at 6. They've had him over 6 all year. It's just that spot in that offense that you're paying for in a lot of ways. Okay, Dimitri says Heaney was sick that start and didn't get warm-up sessions and was on a short leash going into it, so once he got in trouble a bit, they pulled him. Okay, thanks, Dimitri. Appreciate that, bud. Didn't remember that. So let's start with the easy spot. Jose Berrios, 8,800 on DK. Way too cheap. 10-1 on FanDuel is correct. He's not been great this year. I think overall for his career, he's going to end up being basically a league average pitcher, but a guy who can spike a ceiling on the right day and against a bad team. So I think this is definitely a playable spot. Both sides, too. He's a very good value on DK, and he's probably not going to be all that popular for 10-1 on the FanDuel slate, and he's good enough to get through this Oakland team. 3.70 ERA, but a 4.26 xFIP. That's not great. 22.2% strikeout rate, a little bit above league average, but not by a lot. 7% walk rate, 10.9% swinging, pushing around a 30% CSW, 3.19% home runs on a few barrels, keeping hard hits pretty limited, keeping exit velo nicely limited. He had issues with contact and power last year, was up to a 3.85% home run rate on 9.5% barrels. So he's cut this a little bit. Not great, though. The ERA's come down. The xFIP is right around the same. The strikeouts have gone up a little bit, but these have only nudged slightly. It's more back toward being this guy. So if you liked Jose Berrios 2 years ago, he had more strikeouts that year. But I think you can play him in this spot. I think you can justify it on that. And just the Oakland A's being as bad as they are. We do know that there's a little bit of power lurking in this Oakland lineup now in the form of premium contact. We've talked about that a few times. We'll talk about it again in just a second. But if we look against right-handed pitching this season, Oakland overall, a 91 WRC plus collectively for the active roster and a 24.1% strikeout rate against righties. This version of the roster, 24.1, so right on where they should be. So I think there's plenty of potential for Jose Berrios to go out, have a pretty good Jose Berrios game. You could probably grab a few Astros bats or Athletics bats on the other side of that one. They're better against righties. You get Ryan Noda in the lineup. You get Seth Brown in the lineup. A couple of capable lefties. Noda, very good at getting on base. Very good walk rate. High strikeout rate, but has a little bit of pop also. 13% barrels, 47.4% hard hits. Turn that into 13 home runs, a 189 ISO. And he's been creating runs above average for most of the season. 34% above average, second on the team behind Zach Geloff, who's had an outrageous 191 plate appearances. 10 home runs, 9 steals, 136 WRC plus. Granted, most of the counting stats came, I feel like, in the first 75 plate appearances or so. But he's been very good overall. 12.1% barrels, 41.1% hard hits. 26.2% strikeout rate, though. Targetable with Jose Berrios. Part of their strikeout rate is brought down by the terrific 9.2% strikeout rate for Tony Kemp. But to go with that, Tony's also at 219, 310, 317. A .097 ISO. 19% worse than average creating runs. Only 1.4% of those batted ball events that he creates by only striking out 9.2% of the time are barrels. Only 20.4% of them are hard hits. Not great. Tony Kemp is a very flawed option, especially in the leadoff role. I get what they're going for. Balls in play, but very limited. He needs to get... He can't be that guy and get on base at a 310 clip and have a 219 average. That just doesn't add up. Geloff and Noda are the top two guys there. And then Seth Brown, 3,100, 2,500, 13 home runs in only 312 plate appearances, a 195 ISO. Realistic left-handed power, 12.9% barrels, 46.8% hard hits. Rooker, still hanging out there, 23 home runs. Still got that shot at 25, 2 more this month. We'll see if he gets there. 121 WRC plus, 224 ISO among the team leaders. Definitely a capable power bat against, if he gets the right pitch against Berrios, he could definitely drive it. But he's also a 31.3% strikeout guy, an aggressive free swinger that could give a few strikeouts to Berrios here. Jordan Diaz down lineup, very cheap. Second base only on FanDuel, third base only on DK. 9 home runs on the season and 96 WRC plus. Kind of a mix and match guy. Lawrence Butler, mix and match. Good contact profile in his 67 plate appearances. 2 home runs from the left side. Dead minimum price on DK, 2,100 on FanDuel. I think you can include the lefty if you're going to shares of athletics. He's a... What am I looking at? Lawrence Butler. Lawrence Butler this season against right-handed pitching. Opening up a lot of tabs here. It's going to be very limited. 58 plate appearances. Both of his 2 home runs. A 75 WRC plus. Has mostly played against righties. 67 plate appearances. 58 of the 67 plate appearances were against righties. I think he's a playable part late in the lineup. So is Shea Langoliers. Sneaky power, 16 home runs in 421 plate appearances. Wildly inconsistent, only 206, 271, 388. 18% worse than average creating runs. But very, very good premium contact for a guy who only costs $2,800 at a must-play catcher spot. 27 on FanDuel. He's more limited over there. You don't need him, but you can play him. Nick Allen, kind of a dead spot late in the lineup. He does have 4 home runs, 4 steals, but a 48 WRC plus over 256 plate appearances, and he's mostly here for defense. Kenny Waldichuk, 6,000, 6,900, does not project all that well against the Blue Jays here. Blue Jays kind of scuffling overall. Not a great version of the lineup if it's this version of the lineup. But there's a couple deadly good hitters in that lineup. George Springer's still really good. Vladdy's still really good despite down seasons for both of them. And definite danger spots for a pitcher like Waldichuk. Waldichuk, last year, before he got traded, was looking like a pretty good strikeout option in the Yankees system. Went out to Oakland, made a couple clunky starts out there in the show. 7 pretty rough starts in the show for Oakland last year. A 4.93 ERA, but a 4.26 xFIP. Not bad. 22.6% strikeouts, and not really a walk problem to speak of. This year, over 114 innings, 19 starts, and some hybrid work as a bulk reliever out of the pen, a 5.92 ERA, a 5.13 xFIP, a walk problem at 12.1%, fewer strikeouts at 21.6, fair amount of premium contact. He gave up more premium contact last year, so he's at least cut the barrel rate by 4 points. Hard hits are up a little bit, exit velo's up a little bit, home runs are up a little bit. So it's just a weird combination of factors. He's gotten worse in a lot of ways. He's had a couple successful appearances. Let me close a couple of these. In my active memory, the only good appearances were in that bulk relief role. Let's see what the peak for the season looks like. A couple of 7 strikeout games in August. against Texas. That was a surprising one. 7 strikeouts, gave up 2 runs, no homers, 6 hits, faced 25 Rangers hitters. The other 7 strikeout game came against Baltimore. He gave up 2 earned on 2 solo shots in that game, also walked 3, allowed 4 hits, 5 2/3 though, decent depth. If you get that guy today, maybe there's a little bit there. A lot of like 5 strikeout games, 4 strikeout games, pretty low end for Ks. A lot of runs, a lot of home runs. 2 of the last 3 games, he gave up at least 2 home runs. 3 home runs to the White Sox 2 games ago. Last time out only went 4. Struck out 3 but walked 5. Gave up an earned run. Faced 19 Mariners hitters. And that was a game where we were saying, with the Mariners strikeouts, maybe there's some upside for Ken Waldichuk here. Didn't quite get there. Only gave up 1 run, so he didn't take too much off of his already light fantasy score, but not great. It was really that couple of early August games and then a couple of okay appearances as a bulk reliever. But overall, it's been pretty rough. I don't know. I think the Waldichuk option's kind of thin, gang. Even with Toronto coming down in the run total, coming out of Coors Field, they're sitting at a 4.97. Let's effectively call that a 5. One of the few teams projected quite so highly. But like we talked about at the top of the show, we do have a lot of teams that are similar. These 4.5s, these 4.7s and 4.8s, certainly another 4.5 up there. So I don't think the Blue Jays are necessarily an outrageously high priority stack. They do rank out fairly well. Actually, no, I'm going to unwind that. They rank 10th by collective fantasy points against Waldichuk here. 8th by points per dollar on DK. Only 9th by home run upside. So yeah, I think they're a mix-in mid-level stack at best. Obviously, Vladdy is a priority if you go to the Blue Jays. 11.7% barrels, 51% hard hits, 21 homers, a 173 ISO, a 115 WRC plus. Still an above-average player, but not Vladdy Guerrero type of production. But he only costs $3,300. He's not priced like Vladdy Guerrero. No Brandon Belt in the projected lineup. Lefty, that makes some sense. Davis Schneider drawing a big home run mark, 10.76. He cost $3,900 on the FanDuel slate, which is kind of bonkers. 6 home runs in 72 plate appearances. A massive 448 ISO at 263 WRC plus. 20% barrels, 40% hard hits, obviously very appealing. Second and third on DK gives him a little bit of flex. 4,600 is still, relative pricing. It's still more affordable than he is on the FanDuel slate. Obviously, he's got a good home run mark leading the team against Waldichuk here for the home run upside. George Springer, 7.88 in the home run model. He's got 17 homers, 19 steals, up to a 105 WRC plus, pulling things together slightly late in the season. Not been great, but 4,600, 3,400, another star caliber player at a cheap price. Whit Merrifield is an effective mix-in. 44.29 is the right price, second base and outfield. Gives you moderate power, good stolen base upside, good hit tool, good at getting himself to first base. Alejandro Kirk, 6 home runs in 340 plate appearances. We prefer Danny Jansen, but he's on the IL again. Kirk has a moderate power output, 4.9% barrels, 36.7% hard hits. He only strikes out 10.6% of the time, though, so you're getting balls in play from a cheap catcher. Specifically, if he's hitting where he's projected, like 5th in the lineup, 6th in the lineup, there's value there. 3,200 on the DK slate. Mix and match kind of a guy on the FanDuel slate, though. Ernie Clement, 2,200, second base and shortstop on FanDuel, third base shortstop on DK. You also have Santiago Espinal at third base and shortstop on DK for 25. He fills 3 positions for 21 on the FanDuel slate. A lot of infield multi-positional guys on this team today, particularly on DK. That could be interesting, given 4 guys if all 4 are in the lineup. Not that Ernie Clement, Santiago Espinal and Ernie Clement are not Whit Merrifield and apparently Davis Schneider. But I think there's a lot of flexibility, a lot of cheap mix and match viability there. Against a lousy pitcher, these guys could easily succeed. They could be involved with what goes on with these guys. So I think they're at least in play if you're building a bunch of Blue Jays stacks. Gain the flexibility, gain the discount. Kevin Kiermaier mostly here for defense. Dalton Varsho, flawed option if he's in the lineup, lefty. He's got 16 homers, 15 steals, up to 222. And I accurately am saying up to. He was down by the Mendoza line earlier. Only 289 on base, only an 83 WRC plus on this season. Not great from Dalton Varsho. Lefty, what's he doing? The Blue Jays do hit lefties fairly effectively, by the way. Schneider, 5 of those quick home runs for Schneider, 5 of the 6 quick home runs have come against lefties in only 30 plate appearances. Against lefties, Schneider has a 304 WRC plus and a 640 ISO so far. Bananas. Clement has a 160 WRC plus, but that's in 18 plate appearances against lefties. But it was only struck out 11.1%, 5.6% walks. Very, very small sample. That's irrelevant. That doesn't actually matter. The guy I was looking for, Dalton Varsho. All right, lefty, kicks up to a 108 WRC plus, 19.8% strikeouts for him. None of his home runs in 101 plate appearances, though, and only a .078 ISO. And he's got a 380 BABIP against lefties, too, to support the 300, 360, 378 triple slash. So weird output kind of turns into more of a base hit machine against same-handed pitching Dalton Varsho. Maybe you get a little bit out of him for the cheap pricing. So this one is Jose Berrios. Blue Jays bats. Athletics bats, and if you want them, Athletics bats, and I don't really need that many shares, but a couple of Noda, Seth Brown, Brent Rooker, like a little 3-man here, or maybe like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kind of a stack. I think that works. You take a few shares of Athletics as the 3rd ranked option in this game, and then if you want to throw Kenny Waldichuk value darts, he's at least available on the slate. 6,000 is the right price for as bad as he's been. That is a playable enough price if you want to take your shots at the Blue Jays. You get the benefit of a pitcher's park. That's about it. 3 games to go. Looks like the Red Sox lineup is here. Rangers lineup dropped. It is almost exactly what we talked about, except Josh Smith in at the bottom of the lineup, hitting 8th where we had Ezekiel Duran. That's a bit of a downgrade. Downgrades their flexibility. Downgrades their usable cheap players a little bit with... I don't think Josh Smith is nearly the player that Ezekiel Duran is. So limited at the bottom end for the Rangers, but still very, very good. This was... who did I just grab? The Red Sox. Red Sox with a funky twist with Wilyer Abreu leading off. 2,700 on both sites. Projects out okay. A 7 in the home run model. 1 home run in the books in his 21 plate appearances so far. Lefty going up against Aaron Savali here. Savali projects out all right. 9,700, 9,600. We've got a lot of power, a lot of offense showing through for the Red Sox here. I kind of prefer the Red Sox side, even though Savali in Vegas did have them capped at... was that a 4.1? Savali, not an untalented guy by any means. Could easily go out there and shut this team down. Or I don't know how easy it would be for him, but has the talent to do that. Somebody mentioned the fastball issues. I hadn't looked specifically at the issues, but a couple of runs in each of the last games, a few games. Home runs on the board in each of the last 2. Since coming to Tampa... a 3-run game with 4 Ks, a 2-run game with 2 Ks, a 6-inning shutout with 5 hits and 5 Ks, a 5-inning, 3-run, 9-strikeout game against the Rockies, and a 5-inning, 2-run game with 5 strikeouts at Miami. Kind of lowish end, given the matchup. 97, 96, not exactly getting a discount for facing the Red Sox here. 20% strikeout rate on the season, only walks 5.8%, a sparkling 2.64 ERA, but a much more honest 4.27 xFIP. This is the real number. This is who Aaron Savali is. 1.68% home runs, though, on 5.6% barrels. Very good at limiting power. Last year, that was around 3.44 on 40% hard hits, 7.5% barrels. Missed barrels effectively the year before, 4.62% home runs, though. So this year's a little bit of an outlier in terms of the limiting power. The ERA is obviously significantly different than the expected number for what is actually under his control. 102 and a third, 20% strikeout rate. Not a great option here. I greatly prefer the Red Sox side. So you get Abreu off the top. Very cheap. Plays right into Rafi Devers, Justin Turner, Tristan Casas, Duvall, Yoshida, Trevor Story. I really like all these guys. I think this is an effective leadoff option. You've got a couple decent mix-ins at the bottom. This is a very good lineup. This Red Sox lineup plays basically 1 through 9. Reese McGuire, like, more only if you need him on the DK slate. But over 167 plate appearances, Reese 90 WRC plus, not great, but a 285, 327, 384. That's okay. As a mix and match kind of a catcher for 2,500 where you need the position, that's okay. Luis Urias at the bottom of the lineup, well below the Mendoza line, well below the run creation line, 21% worse than average creating runs. Only 3 homers, only a 117 ISO, 7.1% barrels, and 28.2% hard hits. We need him to actually show the power that we know is there. Last 2 seasons, 16 homers in 472, 23 homers in 570. Not a tremendous power hitter, but a guy who can deliver sneaky power for very cheap prices from the bottom of the lineup. Triple position eligible on the FanDuel slate has value. But the story is really these guys. Wilyer Abreu has been here for a sec. In the minors this year, Wilyer had, in 363 plate appearances at AAA, had 22 home runs, 8 steals, 264 ISO, 129 WRC+. Interesting option there at the leadoff spot. I kind of like that. I hope he goes under-owned. Hitting ahead of these guys on its own. It could be me up there. Well, maybe not me. You don't want a guy just like cowering and ducking and dropping the bat every time a pitch is thrown at him at 80 miles an hour plus. But I think a player like this definitely has some value up there. And he hits right ahead of Rafi Devers, 56-37. 29 home runs at 238 ISO. Needs to get that 30th home run. He's been sitting on 29 for like 10 days now, but major source of power. 52.7% hard hits, 12.2% barrels. Justin Turner, dynamite triple slash. Good amount of power, a 196 ISO, 123 WRC+, excellent run creator. Tristan Casas, 22 home runs on the season, a 230 ISO, 130 WRC+, excellent premium contact, draws a lot of walks, very good spot for him. Adam Duvall, 5,000, 3,200, 19 homers in only 285 plate appearances, a 316 ISO, 141 WRC+, tremendous contact, well, at least tremendous barrel rate. Yoshida, very good bat-to-ball skills, puts everything in play. 12.3% strikeout rate, slashing 296, 350, 462, creating runs 18% better than average. Very good player. Trevor Story, below the Mendoza line, only getting on base at a 213 clip, managed to steal 5 bases. We like seeing that. That's been there for a few days now. 75% worse than average creating runs so far, but look at all the premium contact. 4,500 shortstop, 2,800 on second base and shortstop, even more effective. This is a extreme discount. The positional flexibility is great. I don't care that he hasn't hit for average yet. I care that it's a player that I know has power, that I know has delivered major seasons. He's cheap. He fills key positions on both sites, and he's running and hitting the ball really well in terms of just making good contact. Happy to go to Trevor Story and continue going there. Let's do the Rays side of this one. Rays against Brian Bayo. Bayo projects out pretty well. 78, 87. He's only got a 19.1% strikeout rate. He's pretty good at limiting power, 5.8 degree average launch, but a 3.43% home run rate definitely is something to point out. When he makes mistakes, they tend to travel. He's one of those kind of guys, but typically pretty effective at keeping the ball down. He's got a fairly good limiting impact on some of these Rays power marks. Against your average righty, Brandon Lau is going to be over a 10 in the home run model. Isaac Paredes would probably be pushing that level at this point. Yandy Diaz would be in the high 8s to 9 range against your average righty. So I do think Bayo's got a bit of a limiting impact here, and he projects out well enough. I'm not exactly sure what it's on the back of. He's got a 3.57 ERA that's very good, a 4.08 xFIP, doesn't really walk too many guys. So he's a good, capable pitcher. Just not quite sure why it's as high as it is. I checked the innings. There's no broken innings or anything like that. So it's something in the mechanism of the model that's coming through that I can't necessarily put a finger on. But I do think it's a playable spot. I imagine he's not going to be the most popular guy on either site, and he's cheap. He's fairly priced for his talent. So I'll have some on FanDuel, probably a little higher priority on DK at 78. It's competitively priced with some of the other value options on the DK slate. Not the greatest matchup in the world going up against the Rays. They're not the team that they were at the beginning of the season, but there's still a lot of capable, talented hitters on this team, like Yandy Diaz off the top, 53.2% hard hits, excellent strikeout rate, good walk rate. getting on base at nearly a 400 clip, creating runs 55% better than average, 18 homers, a 5.02 slug. Just an excellent season from Yandy Diaz at the top. Brandon Lau, for all his power, is cheap, 4,500, 3,200. He's got 17 homers in 372 this year, a 201 ISO, a 114 WRC plus. In a bit of a down season, major source of power at second base from the left side when he's fully healthy. I like the spot. If anybody on this team is going to hit one today against Bayo, it's probably going to be Brandon Lau. Randy Arozarena from the right side, I'll have something to say about that. 21 homers, 20 steals, only a 172 ISO, but makes pretty good contact. 12.4% barrels, 47.8% hard hits. Should probably have a couple more home runs. Definitely should have a better ISO. But runs, hits for power, is very involved in the team's run creation. 53.38. He's a more expensive star on the FanDuel slate, slightly cheaper relatively at 53 on DK, but definitely a playable part. Josh Lowe, 4,000, 3,400, 18 homers, 27 steals. Hasn't really come back to earth. Hasn't really cooled. He's maintained the production over 411 plate appearances. 214 ISO. Very solid for contact. Pretty cheap for a player who's doing that. Multi-position Isaac Paredes. Multi-position Taylor Walls. Both sites. Triple position for both guys on FanDuel. Double position on DK. 4,700, 3,300 is very fair for a guy who has 27 home runs and 480 plate appearances at 242 ISO. Makes weird contact for a guy with that power output, but he gets it done. Luke Raley, very, very good contact from the left side. 3,900, 2,900, 18 homers, 13 steals. Creating runs 32% better than average. All three guys at the bottom of the lineup are below average for run creation on the season. Taylor Walls had a great start. Most of this came from his start in terms of the counting stats, the 7 homers, the 21 steals. Everything else kind of came crashing back to earth in the next 150 or so plate appearances. But he's still cheap. He showed us that he's somewhat capable earlier in the year. I think you can mix and match him at worst. Aranda, Christian Bethancourt, mix and match plays. First base for Aranda, 2,200 on DK. Second base, 2,000 on FanDuel. Picks up a little bit more value there just by virtue of being a mid-price second baseman. But I'd still rather have Lau. Bethancourt, cheap catcher. Rarely gets involved. 9 home runs in 296. Only a 76 WRC plus. Their lowest end player, but a playable part at catcher. Red Sox bats. Red Sox bats. I don't know how I want to rank this one. I guess Bayo, because of how he projects. Red Sox bats, Bayo. Rays bats, Savali, just because Savali is a little expensive for my tastes. But I think all 4 corners of this one are in play. 2 left. Big Bino says Lau got a home run power. Yep, totally with you there. Obi's here. What's up, Obi? Happy Labor Day. Happy Labor Day, buddy. Mamba says, I'd rather cut my toe off than ever think the White Sox will score runs, Trey. Yeah, especially with no Lubob in there. I tend to agree, but not great. I'm just looking through some of the chat. Sorry for the dead air there. Just reading some interesting points in the chat. Trey talking about Raggins. Looks like Trey and Shannon were having a chat about Cole Raggins, and there's some good points being made. So always good to pay attention to what's going on in the chat too. I know not everybody participates, not everybody talks, and that's fine. I'm not criticizing for that. But watch the chat, because there's a lot of sharp people in here, and a lot of them make good points, and there's some things that I miss. Particularly when it comes to stuff like the weather or like, stuff that I care less about, obviously, and like home road splits and stuff like that. But there are some, some very sharp people in our chat here. So definitely worth paying attention to. While you're here, 147 people watching, hit the like button, hit the subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the subscribe too, because it's, like I said at the top of the show, we're going to have football stuff popping up. I have no idea. As I'm speaking to you right now, I have no idea what time or when or where those football shows are going to be placed during the week. We'll get on a regular schedule after I figure that out. But right now, gotta have that subscribe going so that you know when those things go live. You get the notification there. Make sure you pop into the Discord too. Football channels are open in the Discord. There's a little chatter going on. I'm sure there'll be a lot more as the week continues. Big Bino, you think Raggins gonna be good in that win though? Yeah, I mean, that's the issue there. We can go back to that real quick. The issue in this game, Raggins pretty good also at limiting barrels and and launch so far in a small sample. 1.85% home runs last year. 18.2 degree average launch in 40 innings. I wonder if... let me see real quick. I just want to get the nature of the profile. What's his ground ball rate in the minors? Bear with me. I know dead air is not the most exciting, but I actually got to find these numbers, so it takes a little bit more brain power while I'm also talking. AAA, 50% ground balls, 44.9 last year, 36.2. That's the major league mark, 45, 45, 42. Non-tragic for home runs at most of these stops. Do I have... No, there's no numbers on that. I'm less concerned about it for Ragan, certainly, than Jesse Schultens here. I think Schultens is more your home run vulnerable guy in that game. So maybe that feeds a little bit of additional love to the Royals with the wind blowing out and the heat and everything. Definitely a danger factor for Ragans. It's not like he's only pitching ground balls. It's not like he's Framber Valdez out there, who also has been vulnerable more to home runs this year. But given the profile, given just the nature of what he's looking to accomplish on the mound, I would say between the two guys, he's less threatened. But for a guy that I'm saying, I already kind of want to undercut because of the weight of the world being on him field-wise, a lot of ownership going there as super discounted SP2, guy who's just performing well at a fair price on FanDuel. I think if nothing else, it at least helps support the idea of undercutting that public ownership by a little bit while still getting to him. So if the field's at, say, 40% DK ownership, we'll bring it down a little bit from where we were. And I'm at 25, something like that, and I'm working in some of these other effective SP2 options that we like. I think I'm okay with that. Even if it beats me, I think I'm okay with taking up that position. Let's get back into this one. Antone. I didn't look at... yeah, who's the bulk reliever? I forgot to look that up. Oops. I don't see it. Anybody know who the bulk reliever in this one is? It's not listed in the news feed. Did it come down with the probables? Lopez, no. Corbin Burns, no. Taiwan, no. Giolito, Rich Hill. None of those guys are on Cincinnati, right? Yeah. Well, whatever. TJ Antone, 4,000, 5,500. I can't imagine he's getting enough pitches even to support that in terms of the projection. Is it Antony? TJ Antony? Antony. TJ Antony. 1 inning in a relief appearance so far in the show this year. On 9-2, so just 2 days ago. I can't imagine we're getting more than an inning. I don't know who's coming in bulk relief, though, guys. Sorry. Michael Minot, says Arcatelza. I don't know anything off the top of my head about Michael Minot. Sure about that name? Minott. I am not seeing a Michael Minot in Fangraphs. Marriott. Michael Marriott. Mario. He's 34 years old. He has not pitched in the show since 2016. I'm going to call this one a target. I'm going to call this one a low, non-priority pitcher. Has been working in AAA since 2016. As a 29, 30, 32-year-old, didn't pitch in 2020. Came back in 2021 at 32 with Cincinnati. Then went to the Phillies. Then went to Detroit. Back with Cincinnati. This is a AAA pitcher at best. A lot of 4s, 5s, and 6s in the ERA. A lot of 5s and 6s in the XFIP. Column over the last few years at AAA. Middling strikeout rates. Couple of low 20s at best. Last 3 seasons, 15.8%, 17.2%, 14.3% strikeout rates in AAA. A lot of home runs. I don't have the percentages, but home runs per 9 last 3 seasons in AAA. 1.31, 1.55, 2.03, and this year 2.15 home runs per 9. So fire away with Mariners bats. This is an extremely good spot for Mariners bats, knowing that. They were already ranked 4th on the board for projections, 2nd by FanDuel points per dollar, 3rd by DK points per dollar, and their home run mark is going to go up if I was able to change that pitcher on the fly. So definitely a good spot for the Mariners bats, knowing that. I can't imagine that guy's going to be in the game for all that long. They're probably going to chase him pretty quickly, but they'll come out the other side with a pretty nice run total if they do. Definitely a good spot for Mariners bats. So if we're going to Mariners, we want JP Crawford out of the leadoff spot, 388 on base. Excellent correlated scoring option with the team's power core. 19.7% strikeout rate and a 15.4% walk rate. This guy was walking high 9s, low 9s, high 8s, low 9s throughout AAA over the last few years. So definitely some upside for JP Crawford just to get to first base 3 times, 4 times this game, score a few runs. He's also got a little pop, 14 home runs on the season, a 135 WRC plus overall is terrific. Julio Rodriguez, 6,443, totally worth it. 24 home runs, 36 steals, a 197 ISO, creating runs 29% better than average. Has totally pulled his season together. Teoscar, cheap, 4,600, 3,200, 24 home runs, a 195 ISO, 111 WRC plus. Cal Raleigh, 25 home runs to lead the team, a 236 ISO to lead the team, a 114 WRC plus. Tremendous contact for all these guys right here in the heart of the lineup. Eugenio Suarez, 4,600, 3,000, cheap for him. Only 18 homers, down from 31 each of the last 2 seasons. 151 ISO is down, 102 WRC plus, not great, but a very effective power bat on the right day from the right side. So I like Eugenio at third base. Top 5 are all high priority bats, but then this bottom end is pretty decent. Ty France for 38-27, an effective enough hitter. He's having a down season. His average is down by like 25 points. The on base is down a little bit. The power is down by half so far. Unless he hits 10 home runs in September, he's probably going to fall short of the 20 he hit last year. But I think he's capable enough. He's creating runs 6% better than average despite the downturn, and he's very cheap at first base. Dominic Canzone's been productive, a 101 WRC plus, 5 homers and 133 plate appearances. Very good contact profile for 3,100, 2,200. Mike Ford making great contact all year, 3,000, 2,400, 14 homers, 274 ISO. Technically leads the team, but I gave it to Cal Raleigh because he's made like 300 more plate appearances. But Ford, as long as he remains cheap, and he is 3,000, 2,400 at first base, a playable part. You're not making a mistake by putting Mike Ford in for Ty France in a handful of Mariner stacks. Josh Rojas, mix and match part from the bottom of the lineup. We do have the Reds lineup in on the other side. Talked about Brian Wu. Like Brian Wu quite a bit. Pitcher I've gone to a lot in his limited career. Pretty good success. Got him for a next year only keeper, but for $1 in the Dynasty League as a pickup. 25.3% strikeout rate, 7.1% walks, 4.15 xFIP, 4.15 ERA, 4.04 xFIP. Hasn't gotten burnt by power at all. Only 30.2% hard hits is excellent. 5.6% barrels is very, very good. 86.8 miles an hour of exit velo. Very good pitcher. Has hit a couple walls as he's gone through. Was also out briefly. Let's look at what the pitch count looks like, actually. He short-started us that last time, didn't he? That's where the shortened innings came from in the model. Oh, no, he went 6 the last time. All right, we're fine. Went 6, faced 20, struck out 5, walked 1, 3 hits. That was against Oakland. It was the game before that I was thinking of. The first game back on the 22nd at Chicago against the White Sox. He only went 4, faced 17 hitters, 1 earned run, 3 strikeouts. That was his first game back. He had been out for like 2 weeks. I forget what the injury was. but a very minor injury, hamstring, I want to say, something like that. But just a very minor thing. 2 weeks, came right back. The fact that he went 6 gives me full encouragement that he's going to go 6 again today. We've got major upside for strikeouts in this Reds lineup. Limited a little bit at the top by Jake Fraley and TJ Friedl. 18.1% for Fraley, 16.4% strikeout rate for TJ Friedl. If we take those guys out, that strikeout rate spikes for the rest of the lineup to 26.1%. So there's a lot of Ks there in that lineup. There's a lot of good hitters. Ellie De La Cruz, obviously threatening. 11 home runs, 24 steals, but down to an 85 WRC plus, only a 187 ISO, 35.8% strikeouts, which was the problem for Ellie coming up. So you got to watch that. He's got improving to do for sure. Fraley from the top spot, 15 homers, 20 steals. A lot of these guys. Good mid-range power and stolen bases from a lot of these guys. So Fraley's on that list. He's only 43-32 going up against a righty. We know there's left-handed power there. 207 ISO, a 118 WRC plus in his 337. TJ Friedel's been good all year. 12 homers, 24 steals, a 101 WRC plus. A good, effective player. Gets on base, runs a little bit, hits for infrequent power. Not a great player, but only 45 and 3,000. Pretty effectively priced. Spencer Steer, another guy. Good, not great, but a very nice season. 19 home runs, 12 steals, a 116 WRC plus. Only a 185 ISO. That's good, not great. Like I said, contact profile is okay, not elite. Talked about Ellie. Nick Martini, 3 home runs and 42 plate appearances. Leads the team in the home run model oddly today. 9.7% barrels, 41.9% hard hits for 2,800 on both sites in the outfield. That's not a bad piece of value if you're stacking up Reds against Brian Wu. But again, he's not been bad at all for home runs or for premium contact. Hunter Renfroe, 3,300, 2,500. Welcome to the Reds. 19 home runs on the season now. 95 WRC plus, 513 plate appearances. That's a little bit disappointing in terms of the home run total, but he's a major source of right-handed power over the past few seasons. Tyler Stevenson, mix and match catcher. Noelvi Marte, mix and match infield option. Much better where you can get him at shortstop rather than third base. 2,900, 2,300. He's very affordable. Hasn't done anything yet since his big call-up the other day. Will Benson's been good all year. 8 homers, 14 steals in 269 plate appearances, maintaining a 122 WRC plus, a 207 ISO. I like cheap Will Benson. I like him as a wraparound with his 364 on base percentage, his 14 steals. That just puts another guy right in line with these guys. Benson's a much higher strikeout guy, but he gets on base like a leadoff hitter. He runs like crazy. I like all these stolen bases in a row. So the Reds are in play, but I prefer the Brian Wu side. If I'm ranking this one, it's Mariners bats against a AAA pitcher, Brian Wu, and then Reds bats. There's not a ton of separation between Wu and Reds bats because I do think there's talent there. They ranked 2nd on the board by collective fantasy points, so that's also a thing. 5th by home run potential, even though Wu is pretty good at limiting power. So this is a both-sided matchup, but I prefer the Wu side of it, especially at 8,000 on both sides, just correctly priced. But you can see he doesn't project exactly as well as those top-end guys. Nothing from the Reds pitching staff, thank you. Last game on deck, gang, which is good because it's 1:08. This slate starts in an hour. Somehow we always do that. No matter how many games there are, I will sit here and talk for 2 hours about it. Looking forward to the 2-hour show for the 1-game football slates when there's like 9 total players to talk about. That will be fun for football. I do think that we'll have some not necessarily quite so marathon-y type shows. Like you can knock out a running back show in like a half hour, I like to think. Not as many statistics to talk through. I mean, there are, but the important statistics for football, the important spots, there's a lot more. This is good. That's not really going to come through at all kind of spots for football. We have either of these lineups. Like the spot for the Snakes here on both sides. Not so much for the Rockies. Colorado this year against right-handed pitching. We know how inept they are against left-handed pitching because we've talked about it like crazy, you guys. But against righties, shit, why am I here? I'm on the wrong tab. Hold on. Let me get back to the hitting board. Against righties, they are, unless something has changed in the last couple days. Nope. Also, baseball's worst team for run creation. Well, technically against righties, they're tied for worst for run creation with the Chicago White Sox and the Kansas City Royals at 82 WRC plus collectively. They have the highest strikeout rate in that group at 24.8% against righties. That is the 4th worst in baseball. They have a 156 ISO against righties. That is 21st in baseball. This is not a good baseball team. Merrill Kelly is a very good pitcher. 9,300, 10-3. He's correctly priced. 25.5% strikeout rate. 3.31 ERA is very, very good. A 3.83 xFIP, a little higher than the ERA, but still quite good. 2.95% home runs on 7.8% barrels, 40.5% hard hits. A little bit of exit velo, a little bit of barrels, a little bit of hard hits, but not burning him by any means. And non-tragic numbers, just a little higher than you'd like him to be. This is what's keeping him from being truly elite this season. 9% walks is also having an impact on being truly elite this season. 1.20 whip because of the walks. But overall, very good. 12.1% swinging strikes going up against this nothing Rockies lineup. I like the spot a lot. He projects out at the top of the board. I think the prices are correct, if not a little bit discounted relative to some of the other prices on the board, particularly on DK. Going up against this Rockies team, this is very cheap for Merrill Kelly's talent. If you want to take a contrarian position against Merrill Kelly, wait till he's pitching against another team, I guess. But you're looking probably at Charlie Blackmon, Ryan McMahon, Nolan Jones as your first 3 clicks. Nolan Jones, top priority bat on that team, 14.5% barrels, 42.2% hard hits. Ryan McMahon right there with him in terms of premium contact as a lefty against righties, 12.7% barrels, 45.2% hard hits overall, but most of that for Ryan McMahon comes against righties. 22 home runs, most of which came against righties. Jones is a better hitter, lefty-lefty. He's a good hitter, both lefty-lefty and lefty-righty. 14 home runs, 11 stolen bases, a 120 WRC plus as their best player in his 310 plate appearances. Charlie Blackmon gets on base at a good clip, 380 on base, 293, 84, 53. An effective enough player, 114 WRC plus, had a nice game over the weekend. Ezequiel Tovar, up to 15 home runs, 8 steals, but I set up to, and that's been those totals for like 2-3 weeks now. Lousy kind of a season for him as a rookie, 76 WRC plus. There's a little bit to like in the triple slash in the home run output, the counting stats, but overall he's not been great. He's not priced at a high price at shortstop, 43.29. It's an effective discount, but hasn't been great. Elias Diaz, 4,027, 13 homers and 81 WRC plus. Just a mix-in match catcher at best in this matchup. Brendan Rodgers, mix-in second baseman for 32-24. Does have power in the bat, hit mid-teens home runs each of the last 2 years. Hunter Goodman, 34 in the minors this year. 0 in the majors, but only 24 plate appearances. Has been good in those plate appearances. 156 WRC plus in 24, a 238 ISO, 381, 417, 619. Has put bat on ball very, very well. 13.3% barrels, 46.7% hard hits. That home run's coming. A couple of home runs are probably coming. First base only on DK, catcher only for the dead minimum on FanDuel. If this was over here, that would be a dynamite play, but it's not. 2,900 at first base is only kind of an effective, okay mix in at first base. Michael Toglia, projectable right-handed power, or projectable switch hitting power, but hasn't really delivered at the major league level. Brenton Doyle, mix and match guy. Sub Mendoza, moderate counting stats. Diamondbacks, I don't think anybody in their right mind wants to roster Peter Lambert in this situation. 4.95 ERA, a 4.89 xFIP, giving up a 4.6% home run rate on 12.1% barrels, 45.3% hard hits, almost 91 miles an hour of exit velo. Doesn't really strike anybody out. Walks an okay walk rate. If you're looking to, not a good walk rate, but it's okay. If you're looking for one good thing about Peter Lambert, 55-67. I don't even think he's a value dart today. I think this Arizona lineup is pretty primed to crush him. A lot of low strikeout guys to go with his low strikeout rate. A lot of pretty good walk rates to go with his okay walk rate. I like them to win out and draw a couple walks. Definitely some good spots for power here. Christian Walker, the overall home run pick of the day at 13.24. We've also got Corbin Carroll and Ketel Marte at the top of the lineup above the magic number. 24 homers, 41 steals for Corbin Carroll, a 138 WRC plus. Ketel Marte, one of the top second base options. Only 4,900, 3,400 too. He's cheap. For his upside, for his ceiling on any given slate, he's cheap. 274, 355, 475. He's got a 201 ISO, a 124 on WRC plus. Only strikes out 16.6%, walks 10.5%. What's not to like about Ketel Marte? Tommy Pham, 3,500, 2,800. Also at a discount, particularly against this pitcher. Tommy Pham, 13 home runs, 17 steals this season, a 113 WRC plus, a 195 ISO. He's been hitting for power. He's been running 11.5% barrels and 50.2% hard hits. Tommy Pham's hard hit rate leads this team. It leads this game. Tommy Pham's really good. 3,500, 2,800. I'm not saying Tommy Pham's a superstar, but he's a really good player for those prices, hitting third in the heart of this lineup, surrounded by the hitters he's surrounded by, when we're looking to average down some pricing on an already effectively cheap team. The Diamondbacks should be much more expensive than this against this pitcher. Christian Walker, 4,500, 3,600. FanDuel got it almost right. He should probably be like 38, pushing 4 against this pitcher. 4,500 on DK is an absurd discount for Christian Walker against this pitcher. 11.8% barrel rate, 19.1% strikeouts, walks 9.8% of the time. Has 30 home runs on the board this season. 257 ISO. He hit 36 home runs while striking out 19.6% of the time last year. Christian Walker is a spectacular hitter at first base. That's why he's the home run pick today. I'm going to have loads of Diamondbacks. Alec Thomas, 26-22. Cheap, little bit of pop, little bit of speed, 79 WRC+. Lourdes Gurriel, 37-29. So cheap for a guy who has 22 home runs this year. A 213 ISO. He creates runs 5% better than average. That could be better, but he hits for a ton of power. He's a guy who just last year, he traded off his power and he hit 291, 343, 400. So he's not inept in terms of the hit tool. It's just down by like 40 points this year. The year before was kind of a nice blend. He had 21 homers, 276, 319, 466. This is probably, this is right in between this this no power but good triple slash season and this power but no triple slash season. He's probably this guy. But either way, power and not many strikeouts, 17.4% strikeout rate. So just power, balls in play, hit hard. That's all we need. For these prices, that's all we need. And against a nothing pitcher like Peter Lambert, it's a great spot. Gabriel Moreno, 7th home run of the season last night. 283, 328, 419, creating runs 1% better than average. Decent contact profile. Not great for the barrels, but the hard hits is good. 2,700 for a catcher on DK. Sign me up. 2,300 for FanDuel. I think he's playable on the FanDuel slate. Jace Peterson, cheap for a little bit of infrequent contributions. We've all seen those games where Jace Peterson hits a home run, steals a base, scores 3 runs, and has an odd score. 3,000 at third base on DK is not ideal. Getting him for 23 at second base eligibility on FanDuel is much, much better. Geraldo Perdomo is a better player than Jace Peterson at the bottom of the lineup. 3,400 shortstop, 2,700 shortstop and second base. A lot of value there. Getting on base at a 366 clip this year, creating runs 10% better than average. That's all we really need from him. Use him as a good wraparound back up to the top of the lineup. Save some money. Not that this team is expensive at all. Like this spot for Arizona quite a bit. I like it better than it ranked out on the board, actually. Their collective fantasy points are dragged down a little bit by a couple clunky marks for those guys at the bottom who are all playable. Their value marks are basically intact, and they're third ranked on the home run board overall with some of the best overall individual numbers of the day. Diamondbacks bats, Merrill Kelly, like 1-1A right at the top in this one. Only contrarian hedge position with the Rockies bats, no Peter Lambert. That is this one top to bottom, inside and out, gang. Let's take a look at the home run board here. See what's going on in the chat. I haven't been in there in a minute. Trey says no Cal Raleigh today. Wasn't confirmed up on he had the perfect line. I hate when that happens, when you got something built that you love. That's what's going to happen with Arizona when they confirm it. I'm going to have a bunch of these guys in, and they'll not start Christian Walker today and not start Ketel Marte for whatever reason. It'll be a total shit show when we get there. Mariners. Doesn't look like they updated it yet. O'Keefe, I looked up the other day. Definitely sucks not having Cal Raleigh in there, but I still think it's a premium spot for those Mariners. And that's right, O'Keefe, not a young player, 30 years old. Only a cup of coffee in the majors last year. Only 4 plate appearances. This year, only 15 so far. Not delivering in his tiny major league sample. But the good news is at AAA, granted he's a 29-year-old, so take it for what it's worth. But this year in 378 plate appearances, a Crash Davis-esque 22 home runs on the board. Old guy playing at AAA last year, 2022, he had 13 homers in 352. Year before, 24 across 456 plate appearances between AA and AAA, but again, as a 27-year-old. So probably some believable power there, if nothing else, for O'Keefe. definitely against TJ Antone and the AAA pitcher. We're getting it. So that's the worst case. The worst case, you're getting a guy with good AAA power as an old AAA player against a guy who's an old AAA pitcher with no talent. That's a pretty good spot, especially if people go to it way less. Oh shit! How do we get the Reds lineup in for the Mariners? Now we're all over the place. Weird. So yeah, I think that's definitely a playable spot at worst for O'Keefe. He's probably not hitting cleanup. No home run mark in there. There's no career history to support it. But for only 2,600, where you were going to Cal Raleigh already, I think that's at least a playable part. It's not Cal Raleigh against this pitcher, obviously, but this guy's hit a bunch of AAA home runs. That guy's given up a bunch of AAA home runs. They're both 30 years old in AAA. So, yeah, I'm still good with Mariner stacks. It's 121. Damn, is it good I didn't start the show at like 12:45 or 11:45 or whatever I was saying. 12. Jordan Alvarez, top of the board. A lot of Astros up here. Astros leading the world if we get the Dr. Heaney game. Or Mr. Heaney game. Dr. Andrew Mr. Heaney. Hopefully people actually get that. I imagine you do. You're a sharp chat. You're a sharp group of folks. Down to 88 people lingering here, hanging out, watching me just kind of click through the end of the show. I appreciate the hell out of all you guys. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Hit the subscribe so you know when things go live. Jump into the Discord. Looking at the home run board right now. So, like I said, a lot of power on deck. We've got 15 guys on this board. Maybe a couple of them are in lineups, but 10 to 15 guys over the magic number. A lot of guys hovering around. At or around. Starts at, call it 8.5. Tommy Pham around 8.5. Geloff. Trevor Story, who I like a lot. Bobby Witt not playing. Turner. So some Red Sox up here. Good power board today. Like the day to have some fireworks. Like the day to have some home runs. One last shot at the pitching board, gang. Then I got to go build some lineups. So Berrios. It's the three guys with great matchups. Three talented pitchers in spectacular matchups. Lead the top of the board makes total sense to me. All three of these guys, highly playable. Any situation, any matchup, any kind of lineup, whatever you want to call it, mix and match your way through those guys. If you were telling me on FanDuel that you were cutting your pitching pool to big chunks of these three guys, and then a couple Cole Ragans, a couple Brian Wu, maybe some Logan Webbs, I don't think I have much of an issue with that. A lot of potential for success to come out of one of those three guys. On DK, it's a little bit more challenging. Obviously, these other guys are much more in play. Cole Ragans is a very good option on both sides. 9,000, you're getting a major discount from these other high-end guys. And he projects only slightly behind them in also a very, very good matchup. We do have to, worry about the wind a little bit in that one. We got to worry about the wind a little bit in this one. But Steele and Logan Webb especially, I'm not as worried about the wind. Ragans, I'm not 100% sure, but it seems like we shouldn't be completely worried about the wind. He's ridiculously cheap for his talent on that DK slate. Brian Bayo, playable, 87-78. I think he's playable. I'm not sure why he's projected quite as high as he is. I think I prefer Brian Wu to Brian Bayo. Probably not Logan Webb, just because I want to get to that Cubbies lineup and I have a healthy respect for that Cubbies lineup. But Webb winning the day wouldn't totally shock me. Aaron Savali, I think, is at least moderately playable for a few darts. He's just incorrectly priced relative to where these guys are and who he's facing. So I prefer the Red Sox side of that, but I might have a few Savali shares in my pocket. Same with Heaney. I might have a couple shares in my pocket. I would definitely have a couple at 7,000 on DK. 83 on FanDuel is a little bit high, and we saw all the quality is on the Astros side of that matchup. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's a good play, but there is ceiling on that pitcher. So anybody with ceiling, if you're at a fair price, I might grab a few shares just in case. France, no. Waldichuk for me, no, but I get it at the value pricing. Lambert, no. Jesse Schultens, I get it at the value pricing. If you need that extreme value on DK, you're probably looking at Waldichuk or Schultens, and Schultens has by far the better matchup. For 52, that's if you're looking for a $2,000 discount from an already spectacularly cheap Cole Ragans. If you're looking for a bigger discount from Brian Wu, I would probably make my first stop Heaney before going to either of these guys. As bad as this matchup is, he's got a much higher ceiling than those guys, even against the Astros. Schultz and Waldichuk are your value darts. Extremely low end, extremely thin path to success. Probably not going to work out kind of value darts, but they're at that price rate. Don't do that to me at the end of the show. Did they change it? Son of a bitch. Is Medina working a full start? Either way, that's a very targetable pitcher. Bear with me. I'm just catching up to that. He only went 3 1/3 in his last rehab start. So maybe they're giving us Waldichuk in bulk relief. That's annoying. All right, so that is a change. Luis Medina in for Kenny Waldichuk in that game. Just to talk about his numbers real quick. That's this game. No, shit. Who are they playing? No. Goldfish brain. I can't imagine we're getting Medina for more than 3 or 4 innings. He's got a 5.44 ERA, a 4.70 xFIP. He walks 11% while striking out 21.5, 3.33% home run rate, 41.3% hard hits. Effectively missing barrels, but we don't really care when they're still traveling and he walks this many, strikes out that few, and he's giving up runs. So I don't think anything that we said about the Blue Jays against Ken Waldichuk is changed, except for the lefty-righty of the situation. It's about it. So like Dalton Varsho will get his power back against Luis Medina. Most of these other guys play righty-righty anyway. Not sure what that means for Brandon Belt. I think he was banged up, right? Anyway, it's a non-major change for the Athletics. What it does is take a value pitcher off the board. I would not play Luis Medina against this Toronto team. Where was he priced? Let me hold on. 68, 7,000 for more than Waldichuk. I don't think I would play him. Very limited spot. With that, I'm going to get out of here, you guys. Yeah, they just changed it up on Labs. So it does look like it's Medina, but it looks like he only went 3 and change in his rehab start. I wouldn't expect him for more than 4. Doesn't look playable. I have no idea what that means for the bulk relief situation. Might be Waldichuk. So just a targetable spot for Blue Jays bats. Takes away your value option, though. Medina is not going to see the innings. Lone Wolf says Moreno and Kirk, good pay down catchers. Garver, good pay up catcher. I like both of those. Prefer Moreno and Garver, obviously, over Kirk. But Kirk, not bad. Certainly not ineffective. If he hits in the middle of the lineup, that's a good spot. With that, gang, get your lineups in. Get your lineups built. I got to go do that right now. Good luck to you all. Somebody out there go win something. I'll see you tomorrow. Keep your eyes out for NFL content. Got to figure it out the rest of today. But it'll be coming. See you tomorrow, gang.